this event. I do know that we've helped them out, I think, last Christmas with their Christmas hampers. The treasurer could maybe help me with that. We helped Kuchiching out, I think, was it during the Christmas with Christmas hampers? $250 for that?
Through the chair, it was for their Christmas dinner.
Well, Christmas dinner, yeah. But I don't know that we've done anything for their powwow. Further discussion? Councilor Behan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think, if I'm not mistaken, our Council of Public Relations budget is a little bit smaller in 2025 than it has been previously. But I think because it sort of fits into our strat plan with working with Indigenous groups and neighboring communities on reconciliation, I think it's a good idea to help maybe support a powwow and bring people to our community in our area. Did you put a dollar value on your oral motion? I didn't hear it.
$250.
250. Okay. I was only going to go 500, but that's fine.
Yes, ma'am. Any further discussion? Councilor Bernetta.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do think this is a great thing for us to show our support, particularly for their cultural activities. I'm just wondering, if we start getting more and more requests, because obviously there are a number of communities, First Nation communities in our area, that we maybe look at this a bit more closely in the future in terms of how we use our budget in terms of different things that might come forward.
That's an excellent point, Councilor Bernetta. In fact, it's something that I might suggest that our Indigenous Advisory Committee might discuss when we start talking about reconciliation and a reconciliation policy. But I agree with you. I think that this is a good thing. We do want to promote reconciliation with all of our Indigenous partners. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you for that. I'm having coffee with Chief Breer tomorrow, so I'll look forward to telling him that we're doing this. And then item 6.1, something else again from the Ontario Métis community, and I'll put an oral motion on the floor so that we can discuss this. That Council direct administration to prepare a report with recommendations on the Northwestern Ontario Métis community interpretive sign installation project at a council meeting in April. Could I get a mover and seconder for that? Councilor Firth, Councilor Behan. Any discussion? Councilor Behan.
Yeah, once again, I think I do agree with the idea and concept of this signage. I think it again fits our strategic plan in terms of initiatives of reconciliation and partnering with Indigenous groups to promote tourism and Indigenous history. Just one question. The first diagram on the thing does show a potential sign location at Pithers Point, or Point Park, sorry, pardon me, and another one sort of in central downtown near the Civic Center. And then the next diagram shows 6 potential locations, and I think there's 7 signs. So I'm a little curious, because I'm not sure having one at the point at this time is the right way to go, but I'm certainly in favor of the whole idea of concept, and we can maybe decide where the points are. But there are 6 or 7 along the riverfront there. I'm certainly in favor of that. Thank you.
I noticed that too, Councilor Behan, and that should become part of the report and the recommendation. Councilor Bernetta?
I think this might also be another good item to refer to the Indigenous Relations Committee. I know there are some concerns between First Nation communities and the Métis community, and I don't want to be seen as giving preference to one or the other. So maybe this is something that could become more of an issue than we see here on the request. So I would like to have someone take a closer look at it.
And hopefully that'll be part of the report. Councilor Firth?
I haven't walked the parkway in a while, but don't we have signs along the parkway?
Yes.
Okay, what shape are those in? Because are these things that could be joined together in a new sign, or do we want to just?
These will be similar to the signs that exist, which are nice signs and are in good shape and last, and they're tasteful.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay, so I'll call the question on that. All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Thank you for that, councilors. Applaud your wisdom as always. So moving on to reports. I have a rather lengthy report, but I won't go through everything. I just will pick out a few items where I like to give shout outs to people who are doing good things. So I want to give a shout out to the Human Trafficking Coalition, the local Human Trafficking Coalition. They held a fundraiser and an educational dinner. It was a really moving event. It was a well-attended event. They had a documentary on human trafficking, and human trafficking is going on here. They had a speaker, a woman who was trafficked from our area, and I've been at other meetings where they've had other individuals who were trafficked from our area. So a shout out to the Human Trafficking Coalition for doing good work on this, for doing some fundraising and for raising awareness. I attended a special meeting of the Fort Francis Power Corporation. This was the day after we had a presentation from Siemens on the microgrid. And the Fort Francis Power Corporation meeting was, again, basically 3 hours of presentation from Siemens. It was a really in-depth presentation, but some really good work is being done, and I want to give a shout out to the Fort Francis Power Corporation, and in particular their CEO, Jorg, who is really doing some good work in this area and has done a lot of background and groundwork. I'll just mention that I spent a lot of time in the past week with collective bargaining and dealing with CUPE. The DSAB, or the Rainy River District Services Board, I'll always call them the DSAB, is in negotiations with CUPE with respect to their paramedics. We met in 2024, negotiations broke off, we went to mediation. We had a very good mediation session this past Monday. We got some stuff was done and an agreement to meet further. So that went well. And then I want to give another shout out to the Northwestern Health Unit. The Northwestern Health Unit, they deserve multiple shout outs. They do such a good job in our community in a variety of areas. And the latest thing they've done is they saw an opportunity to get a grant. They applied for a grant, they got the grant, and they used it to buy a radar speed sign because they're concerned with traffic and the speed of traffic on 2nd Street going towards Robert Moore School and other schools as well. So they placed this sign last week on Wednesday on 2nd Street just behind the arena, and there was a photo op, and the Northwestern Health Unit is doing a media release on this, but they're doing such good work. And another shout out to our bylaw officers, Corey and Clinton, for the dog that they saved last week. That was a good thing. And then the last thing I want to speak to is the Border Mayors Alliance. As you know, I've been reporting on that regularly. Now that tariffs are coming into effect, the Border Mayors Alliance, we're meeting weekly every Thursdays at 3 o'clock. We have hired a national strategy organization to track news on tariffs. And so we get a tariffs update every morning, and they're going to be bumping it up to get one every evening. There's a lot of work going on with individual mayors who are meeting with their counterparts in America and with business leaders. And I really salute them for the work that they're doing at grassroots, trying to protect their municipalities and get a municipal point of view into the national discussion. And I think I'll call it quits there, and I'll go to Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For my report, I attended my first Physician Recruitment Committee meeting on February 20th, and we received the recruitment report from recruiter Todd Hamilton. I can assure everybody here and our constituents that the committee is working very hard to recruit new doctors, and I was very impressed with all the work that the committee in Riverside Health has put in arranging locums to service our area, which includes covering the local ER and surgical locums to give our surgeon, Dr. Elkire, some relief. There's been some discussion with local organizations and municipalities forming a joint venture to promote our district in hopes of attracting medical professionals to our area. I believe at the Mutual Aid Association, they were thinking about maybe doing like a 5-minute commercial, like showcasing lakes and hunting, fishing, and whatnot. For the library board, the last regular library meeting was held on February 27th. We were informed of the water damage that was discovered on February 24th with puddles and wet carpets. We had some more melting weather shortly after a long deep freeze. The roof drain overflowed with melting snow off the roof. And the storm sewer was frozen and the water backed up into the library. It was closed for 1 day, allowing the staff to clean up the water and throw out the old rugs that were waterlogged. With contract negotiations with the staff, library staff were ongoing with CUPE. We no longer using the lawyer for initial contract negotiations with the library. And the CEO, the library, the chair, the co-chair, alongside the mayor and our HR manager, have been meeting with CUPE last week, I believe, with ongoing negotiations at the end of the month. That's it.
Thank you. And I do want to give a shout out to our HR manager for the excellent work that she's been doing with the CUPE negotiations. Thank you very, very much, HR manager. I'll go to the consent. Oh, sorry, Councillor Bernetta. Almost skipped you.
You did skip me. I'll forgive you, though. Thank you. The majority of my report is around the Northwest Health Unit Board of Health. So the Northwest Health Unit is a member of the Association of Local Health Public Health Agencies. And the acronym is ALPHA for short. So if you hear me say that term, you'll know what I'm talking about. Each year they host virtual symposiums in the fall, which is usually in October, and the winter, which is usually in February. So on February 13th, I attended a pre-symposium workshop titled Harnessing the Power of Where in Public Health. It was a very interesting presentation on how public health units can use GIS data to support public health practices and create healthier communities. The software contains a collection of tools to permit advanced analysis so we can make more informed plans and decisions and evaluate progress. It was actually originally developed to track COVID-19 deaths and locations. But now it's been expanded to collect data on vaccine rates, illnesses and disease data, and more by location. So it's going to be very helpful for all public health units. On the 14th, I attended a full day of presentations and meetings with the ALPHA Symposium. And we heard from a company called GenWell, and they explained how public health can meaningfully improve the long-term health and well-being of people, reduce costs to the healthcare system, increase social cohesion and inclusivity, and drive economic and community benefit. They also had presentations from the Southeast Health Unit with updates on their recent merge. So effective January 1st of this year, 4 public health units in Southern Ontario merged. They included Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington, Hastings, Prince Edward, and Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. So they all merged together to form one health unit. We also reviewed the ALPHA strategic plan, and then we heard from Sabine Matheson, a political analyst. So I always find her discussions so interesting because she talks about how we as a health unit can navigate the challenging political landscape. And finally, we split into boards of health section and medical officers of health section to focus on issues of importance to our specific sectors. At the February 26th Board of Health meeting, Doug Lawrence was re-elected chair and I was re-elected vice chair. Our next Board of Health meeting will be held virtually on March 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernetta, and congratulations on being elected as vice chair. Okay, we'll move to item 8, which is the consent agenda. We have 4 items tonight, starting with 8.2. These are the regular council meeting minutes. A recommendation reads that council approve the regular council meeting minutes of February 24th, 2025 as presented. 8.3 deals with boards and committee meeting minutes, and the recommendation reads that the Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee meeting minutes of January 8th, 2025 be received as information. Item 8.4 is a revised resolution of support for the Sorting Gap Marina and Riverfront Rehabilitation Project. The recommendation reads that council receive report AR-24-0755 entitled Revised Resolution of Support for the Sorting Gap Marina and Riverfront Rehabilitation Project, NOHFC grant application, and that council acknowledges The total project cost has already been approved as dependent on funding capital item in the 2025 Town of Fort Francis capital budget, and that the added contingency amount will be only utilized if needed and through award of tender by council. And that council authorize and support an application to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation Community Enhancement Program for the Sorting Gap Marina and Riverfront rehabilitation and related works. And that the project costs will be attributed as follows. NOHFC, $143,175, and the municipal contribution of $47,725, and any budget overages. And finally, in the consent agenda, item 8.5, recommendation reads that council receive report AR 25-0777 entitled Revised Resolution of Support for the McIrvin Park and Outdoor Rink Reconstruction NOHFC grant application. And that council acknowledges the total project cost has already been approved as dependent on funding capital item in 2025 Town of Fort Francis capital budget exclusive of contingency, and that the added contingency amount will only be utilized if needed and through award of tender by council. And that council authorize and support an application to the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation Enhancement Plan for the McIrvin Outdoor Rink Reconstruction and Park Rehabilitation and related works, and that the project cost will be attributed as follows. NOHFC, $500,000, municipal contribution, $190,000, and any budget overages for a total project cost of $690,000. Would any of those like to be pulled by councillors? A really convoluted sentence. In that case, I have a resolution that council approve the consent agenda as follows. Agenda items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, and 8.5. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Bernetta, Councilor Morrison. Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, moving on to item number 9, which is Administration and Finance Division reports. 9.1 is a council composition report, and the resolution that I'll put on the floor, the recommendation is that council receive report AR-25-0776 as information. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Bien. Councilor Mackey. Councilors, any discussion on this? Councilor Bernetta.
Thank you. I was reviewing this report and I noticed that Red Lake was sort of an outlier with only 5 council members. So I took the opportunity to contact Mayor Fred Moda and asked him about some of the questions that we had in terms of concerns for making our council smaller. One being, the workload. Would the workload increase? And he felt that the workload hasn't really increased. He said they were a board of 7, I think approximately 10 years ago, and it was changed just before he got on council. And I also mentioned the concern that with only 5 members of council, was there an issue with getting quorum for meetings? And he said, since he's been elected, he didn't have that issue. So he didn't really have anything negative to say in terms of a smaller council. The only thing, of course, is that their population is almost half of what our population is. So I did mention to him that, the other communities that we looked at with similar sized populations also had 7 members of council. So in terms of the report, and thank you for the report, Madam Clerk, I do agree that if we are to consider this in any detail, we really do need to get the input of the public. We do need to at least do a survey in terms of finding out what the public opinion is. I'm quite comfortable staying with 7. I do think we have quite a few more committees that are required of us than they do in Red Lake. So, yeah, I'd really just like to maybe make that request that we do a survey to gather more information.
Thank you, Pat. Any further discussion? Councillor Bien?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I, too, I'm comfortable with staying at 7 for now and looking at that. My biggest concern might be the potentially less diversity at the council table if we only have 5 instead of 7. I do realize that we are having trouble getting people to run and candidates, but I think that potential diversity loss might be is more important, and I think that's that we would miss, and I'm worried about that. The other one, too, it says one pro to decreasing is reduces budget, less spend on wages, travel, professional development, et cetera. I understand that. But then later on, it says if we're going to increase the workload, maybe we have to increase the remuneration of the mayor, deputy mayor, and councillors and whatnot. So I'm wondering if that would sort of balance out. So for my part right now, I'm in favor of staying with 7. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yeah, I'm also in favor of staying with 7, but I do want to just poll council and see if any of you are in favor of putting out a questionnaire, as Councillor Burnett has suggested. Is there any interest in putting out a questionnaire? Not seeing any. Oh, sorry. Yes, absolutely.
Through the mayor. I've been on a council of 5 before, and I found all of a sudden if 2 people go on holidays and you only have 3 members, it's really tough to make a decision with 3 people, and it might be something that's unpopular as well. I think it's nice to have a larger amount of people here, and it will allow diversification on the thing. So I'd prefer to keep it at 7 personally.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call the question then, that council received this report as information. All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, 9.2, taxi rates. I'll put a resolution on the floor. Recommendation reads that council accept report AR-25-0779 and that council agree with the recommendation of administration to not raise taxi rates at this time. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councilor Morrison, Councilor Bernetta. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, calling the question. All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Item number 10, there are no Community Services Division reports. 11, Planning and Development Division reports. There are none. Item number 12, I will put a resolution on the floor that council approval of report AR-25-0775 will agree with the recommendation of administration to award tender 2025-OF-01 to Seven Hills Incorporated for a total tender cost of $779,950, including a $25,000 contingency and exclusive of HST. Can I get a mover and seconder for that one, please? Councillor Bien, Councillor Bien, Councillor Bernetta. Discussion, councillors. Councillor Mackey.
Thank you, Worship. Although I like the number of Seven Hills versus all of the other quotes, I'm wondering, hesitant in that they're saying they can do it for, in some examples, a third the cost of other businesses that are saying. One we've got for just under $2.3 million. Well, what's the quality of that? Do we address that? I suspect we do, but I'm just concerned that it seems pretty low in relation to the other 7.
I'll go to Engineer Van Jal.
Through the chair. We went through our competitive bidding process following our procurement policy with the set of engineered specs, documentation, and drawings. Each of the contractors had the same bid documents and specifications to review. and prepare their bids in accordance with. In doing so, we do have one bid that is certainly lower than the rest. That's something we do receive by getting this kind of outreach. I know our manager of operations facilities has reached out to Seven Hills just to review and kind of vet the products and work methodology that they plan to use for the project, and he feels confident from what he's hearing from them. So ultimately, we are looking to recommend moving forward with Seven Hills. They will have contractual obligations through the construction project, including engineering inspections and site visits, as well as technical reporting of their materials that they do plan to use throughout the construction project.
Any follow-up question, Councillor Mackey? Councillors, Councillor Bien?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So again, over budget, I see that from my calculations, it's about 179,000 over what we had forecast for the roof replacement. And it says in the report, given the cost overage for the roof work, the remaining works will be adjusted to align with the remaining funding. By my, again, calculations, it's about $100,000. I'm just curious what the remaining works would be and how that's affected. Thank you.
Engineer Van Gel.
Through the chair. So some of the remaining works that we were looking at in this year's project were creating or constructing a Zamboni pad out of the Zamboni entrance to try and mitigate tracking of some of the sediment and debris from the parking lot into the ice surface, as well as some various lighting upgrades. With that, like you mentioned, we will have a balance of approximately $100,000. But goal number one is to keep the weather out of the facility, and then see what we can do with the rest from there. I do see Travis also has his hand up online.
Go ahead, Manager Rob.
Thank you, through the chair. So we've got 32 projects in total made up of this one large project and grant. We've been working through those 32 projects over the last 4 or 5 years. So we're kind of down to the last year now, and we're really focused on the most impactful of those 32 projects that we haven't already completed. We've had some pretty substantial budget overages along the way, bearing in mind that all of these projects were budgeted in 2019. So a lot has changed in the world of procurement since then. So for the finishing up, we'll be looking at that list and the money that is left over after the roof is complete, and we'll be putting together tenders or quotes for the remaining works.
Thank you, Manager Rob. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Bien?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again, through you. I guess my only other concern is that if we do put it off to be undertaken at a later date, it's just going to get more expensive or I fear that. So I'm in favor of the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'll call, Councillor Morrison.
To the chair, I just want to say as a user of the Sportsplex, I've seen a leaking roof almost every time it rains and melts. It's something I think that's, if we don't get it done pretty soon, it's going to cause a lot more damage.
Yeah, good point. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Calling the question, all in favor? That's carried. No one is opposed. Okay, 12.2. Put a resolution on the floor, and then we have to make a decision. So the resolution reads that council approval report AR-25-0780 will provide direction to administration to proceed with option blank as detailed below, and that council pass the required bylaws to execute the required agreements based on the selected option. So can I get a mover and seconder so we can get this on the floor? Councillor Firth, Councillor Bernetta. Councillors, first of all, questions or comments? Councillor Bernetta.
Based on the information we have here, I would most be in favor of option 2, which is to, prepare the park and get the boats berthed. But I guess the piece that's remaining here then is the interior of the Hallett. So my question is, do we know how many, when our Hallett was open, do we know how many people actually went through the interior? I'm just wondering if it's something that's a priority and perhaps could wait.
Yeah, Engineer Van Gel.
Through the chair. At this time, I do not personally have that, the data on me. I think it's something we could likely look into and find through some of our admissions and whatnot that we've received over previous year's budgets. We may be able to decipher those numbers, but I don't have that today.
Councillor Bien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Regarding option 2, I thought of that too initially, but then I thought, what's the use of having a boat if we can't have people tour it and whatnot? And it is a museum attraction, it had been, and we do get some revenue from admissions, so hopefully that would help a little bit. But to have a tourist attraction but people can't actually go on and go through, I sort of not sure I would support option 2 just because of that, because I think it is important that if it's there, it should be, people should be able to visit it and actually go through it.
Thank you, Councillor Bien. Further comments? Councillor Morrison.
I just have a question through the chair. I know they had a contractor working on it this summer. Were they not restoring it? I'm just curious what happened there.
Engineer Vanjel.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. So I think some of it might be as detailed in the report, but we did have somebody initially working on the Hallett, preparing some access points and beginning some remedial works. Through some of our, I guess, research and whatnot, we found that our procurement policy wasn't fully abided by in securing that contractor. So we decided to halt the work, ensure we're fulfilling our procurement policy as passed by council, and go out for a competitive bidding process to be brought forward to you, council, for decision.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Morrison, or are you okay?
Just to the chair, just follow up. How much was that other contract worth? Or I know it got complicated with the paperwork.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, unfortunately, there was no written contract at the time. However, there was a price, I guess, between the parties known of $200,000. Set of specifications and whatnot. I'm not aware if there was anything set in place at the time.
Councillors, Councillor Bien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. I will say that I'm really struggling with this one because I think it's important that we have these historical things here and on display and as a tourist attraction. But I also, when you look at it, it's $689,000 for one part of it, and another is potentially $750,000 for the park construction. That's $1.3 million. I don't think we expect it to be that much. That's a lot of money. So each option I'm looking at has its pros and cons. You know, option 1 gets it done. Unfortunately, we have an unbudgeted expense of $750,000, give or take, which is a lot of money. Option 2, as Councillor Burnett brought up, you know, but again, do we not finish the interior of the Hallett and whatnot? But then I don't see the attraction there if it's not open. I'm not sure option 4 is viable either, because then what do we do with the Hallett and the Awandam if we don't go ahead with anything? And then so option 3, is it possible, I know it's said it's some that unlikely options to select, but is it possible that we could do part of the work this year and then the actual construction of the park next year, bearing in mind that that means another year of not having it on display?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, it certainly is an option that we do have. We can work with the selected bidder in this case for the rehabilitation of the Hallett. We can look at completing the design works for the park so that we can go out to future grant funding partners or keep continuously seeking grant funding to complete the next stage of the project. And that will really just come down to time and successful grant funding applications.
Manager Rob.
Thank you, through the chair. Just, I think to bear in mind, if we delay the remaining works in terms of creating a berth and actually moving the Hallett into a position, there is an ongoing financial burden to have it in the parking lot in terms of providing traffic protection and things for it. So yes, there is a capital cost associated with building the place to put it. There is also a cost in not building the place with the current situation.
Thank you, Manager Rob. Further questions or comments, councillors? Councillor Bernetta.
Just one more comment about option 2. I think, yes, it would be great to be able to tour it, but by the same token, I think we have many different things in our community and other communities have as well that are, you know, just visual in terms of an object that you look at and you can read the history and read the information about it. So the touring part is, you're right, it does create some revenue, but it is something that we could work on later. So I think the main thing we should do is get them in their place, get them birthed, and develop the park, and at least make it look good aesthetically. And then once we, perhaps in the next budget, apply for more grant funding to rehabilitate the inside so we can do the tours again, is something that we, in my mind, it just makes things look better.
Thank you, Councilor Banana. Councilor Mackey.
I am simply going to say that I echo Councillor Burnetta's thoughts right there, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Comments? I'll make a comment. I think this community deserves nice things. And when it comes to our heritage and our history, I think that's very, very important to remind us of where we came from, who we are. And we can't keep letting our important artifacts deteriorate. To not move forward on this, those boats are going to continue to deteriorate, and the cost of fixing them and mounting them is going to continue to go up. I'm very cognizant of the fact that the Owandam, money for the Owandam was raised by the community. They've waited patiently for a long time while that boat has sat in the town yard. It needs a home. It needs to be placed in a proper context. The same thing with the Hallett. So I really would like us to go ahead with this one project and do something nice for our entire community. So I would be in favor of option number one. And so what I'm going to do now is poll council and ask each councillor for their options. Councillor Bien?
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Please, Mr. Mayor, through you. If we decide with option two, and is it feasible that that portion of it could be done in a future budget year like 2026, the interior rehabilitation? Or that's something that really can't be done once it's in place and on its new berth and in its new park? Or that's something that should be done before we build it in a park?
Go ahead, Engineer Van Gel.
Through the chair. So there's a few components to that. One really comes down to what the engineers designed for, you know, foundation and access and whatnot to access the Hallett in the future. Depending how elaborate that looks, it could impact how a contractor could go in and do the rehabilitation to the boat. But on the flip side, that could also, I guess, work in their favor in terms of providing easier access. Regardless, they'd have to be much more diligent in terms of protecting the you know, the access, the new patio stones, or whatever the surrounding structures look like. So it's definitely an option to push that. Except I think we would want them to be much more diligent in terms of their the rehabilitation, as it does pose risk to new infrastructure that will be in the ground at that time.
Thank you for that. Follow-up, or are you good? Okay. Yes, Councillor Morrison?
To the chair, I just actually heard from my daughter who worked 2 summers at Sorting Gap. She said on a good day they'd have 10 people touring there, usually camps, like if they had a summer camp, those people come through. But through the chair also, I'd like to ask a question. What kind of interior work needs to be done? Is that what the $600 and some $1,000 mostly for interior and exterior work?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, correct. So there's different sorts of abatement and hazardous substance control that needs to take place within the boat, based on what we found from our designated substance survey. So that would be included in the scope, as well as painting, coating, rehabilitating, more or less top to bottom.
Councillor Morrison, anything else on that? Okay. Any further questions or comments? Okay, well, I'll just poll council then. I'll start with you, Councillor Morrison. Which option are you in favor of?
Option 2.
Councillor Mackey?
Option 2.
Councillor Bien?
I agree with Mr. Mayor in that it should be done now, and so I'm in favor of option 1.
Option 2.
Councillor Firth?
Option 2.
The option twos have it. So the resolution then is that council approval of report AR-25-0780 will provide direction to administration to proceed with option 2 as detailed below, and that council pass the required bylaws to execute the required agreements based on the selected option. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Thank you, and thank you, councillors, for your discussion. Okay, 12.3, put a resolution on the floor. Recommendation reads approval of report AR-25-0782 will agree to the recommendation of administration that council award tender 2025-OF-05-3, a 3-year sanitary sewer cleaning and CCTV inspection program with provisions for lift station cleaning and digester cleaning to Unijet Industrial Pipe Services for a total of $679,131.48 over 3 years, which includes the town's portion of HST, and that council pass the required bylaws to execute the required agreements. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Morrison. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Behan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, looking at this, it looks like we had set aside $200,000 for in 2025 for this kind of work, and it turns out that, again, the bid we're looking at is $279, not counting HST. So again, we're over budget, but I don't know what else to do. It's the lowest bid, and to put it off again, that's something we have to do. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Behan, for that comment. Any further comments or questions? Calling the question, all in favor? Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. 12.4. Resolution reads, the council approved report number AR-25-0774 and agreed to award tender 2025-OF-04 to Pioneer Construction Incorporated at a total tender price of $466,621 plus the municipal portion of HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the corporation. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Behan, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion, councillors? All in favor? That's carried. No one was opposed. Okay, that brings us to item number 13, which are bylaws. We have only one this evening. Recommendation reads that bylaw 18-25, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the town of Fort Francis and the informational professionals, be introduced and read and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the corporate seal and become law forthwith. Could I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Morrison, Councillor Bernetta. Any discussion, councillors? Seeing none, calling the question, all in favor? It's carried, no one is opposed. Item 14 is a notice of motion / motion to reconsider. We have none. And with that, we move to item number 15. We have a closed session this evening, and I'll put a resolution on the floor. That council now meet in camera in order to address a matter pertaining to 1, to receive and consider applications to the Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee, that's under section 239-2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor Behan, Councillor. Any discussion? Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried, no one is opposed, and we're going in camera at 6:20. To those partaking in the meeting at home or online, we'll now move in camera to discuss this. We shouldn't be too long, and then we'll come out of camera and report. Okay, we're back in open session. In closed session, we discussed 2 items. A an appointment to the Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee and the closed meeting minutes of February 24th. And 2 resolutions are coming out of that closed session. The first resolution, the recommendation is that council appoint Natalie Donaldson to the Indigenous Relations Advisory Committee. Could I get a mover and seconder on that, please? Councillor Firth, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. No one is opposed. Congratulations and thanks to Natalie Donaldson for putting her name forward. And the second item that came out of the closed session was the recommendation to approve closed meeting minutes. So the resolution I'll put on the floor is that council approve the closed meeting minutes of February 24th, 2025. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Behan, Councillor Firth. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. Next up is the confirmatory bylaw. So I'll put that on the floor. Recommendation reads that bylaw 19-25, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Fort Francis, be introduced, read, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the corporate seal, and become law forthwith. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bernetta, Councillor Mackey. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Yes, people are giggling already. And now the final recommendation that having reached the hour of, thank you. Once again, the mighty Councillor Mackey steps forward, having reached the hour of 6:30. This meeting of the town of Fort Francis be now closed. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Mackey and Councillor Morrison. You should just turn your head. I will next time. And I'll call that question. All in favor? That's carried. Although